This is 7 News.
Tonight, a dramatic arrest over a suspicious death in Mandurah.
Angelina Jolie's brave decision to have both breasts removed to prevent cancer.
And an architect's warning decades before a toddler death on Rottnest.
From the studios of 7 Perth, Susanna Carr and Rick Arden.
Good evening. Those reports soon, but we start with details of the federal budget. It's come with some pain for families, with the popular baby bonus scrapped and replaced with much lower payments. There are other cuts too, which Wayne Swan says are necessary for challenging times. Mark Riley reports.
An election year budget that cuts the fat and is almost entirely sugar-free.
It's definitely set in very different economic circumstances to a year ago.
There's a big shock for young families. The baby bonus is scrapped, replaced with lower payments through Family Tax Benefit A of $2,000 for the first child, $1,000 for each subsequent child.
We understand there will be some people who will be unhappy about this decision.
That's in addition to scrapping promised increases in family payments of up to $600. But there's added incentive for seniors to downsize. Seniors who sell their home of 25 years or more can invest up to $200,000 without losing any of their pension. But the money must remain invested for 10 years. As expected, Wayne Swan has delivered more deficits, $19.5 billion this financial year, $18 billion the next. But putting the budget in balance in 3 years and yet another predicted surplus in 4 years.
This discipline gives Australia a responsible pathway back to balance in 2015-16 and surplus by 2016-17. It's a fairer way forward.
The deficits are blamed on the strong dollar and tax shortfalls, particularly in the mining and carbon taxes. The mining resource rent tax down from last year's forecast of $14.5 billion to now raise a third, just $5.5 billion over the next 4 years. A slump in the carbon price overseas will also see $6 billion in revenue wiped out, matched by cuts in carbon schemes. The centrepieces are big spending promises Labor hopes will define this government.
These are some of the most important reforms our country will undertake in a generation.
Over $14 billion on the National Disability Insurance Scheme over the next 7 years, partly funded by an increase in the Medicare levy, and $9.8 billion for the Gonski education reforms.
So you say there's nothing in this. This is a huge change to education in Australia.
There'll be $24 billion in big infrastructure projects in the next 6 years, with priority given to Perth's Swan Valley Bypass, Sydney's M2 to F3 link, Melbourne's Metro Rail and Brisbane's Cross River Rail project. But there are also big cuts, $1.4 billion by making firms pay their income tax monthly. The government will also save close to $1 billion by phasing out the medical expenses tax offset. And smokers will have to cough up, with tobacco excise adding 7 cents to a packet of 25s. Economic growth has been revised down from 3% to 2.75%.
Outperforming most of the developed world.
Unemployment is expected to rise this financial year to just under 6%.
Labor chooses a stronger, smarter and fairer Australia.
Yeah. Mark Riley, 7 News.
And Mark Riley joins us now from Canberra. Mark, what's been the early reaction?
Well, Susanna, from a government that's known for a surplus of promises and a deficit of delivery, there's quite a deal of surprise in Canberra tonight that it is now predicting another surplus in 4 years' time, and also surprised that it's cut so deeply, particularly axing the baby bonus. That has surprised a lot of people. It is a tough budget for tough times, but a lot of that has been brought on by the government itself, Susanna.
Mark, and what's in there for WA? Will the state government's transport plans get the money that Colin Barnett asked for?
Well, there's quite a bit of money in there for transport, Susanna. $500 million for a public transport plan in Perth, money for the Swan Valley Bypass and a couple of other major road projects. So there is some money there. Is it enough? We'll hear from the Premier tomorrow about that.
Thanks very much, Mark. And David Koch will help make sense of the federal budget and what it means to you tomorrow morning on Sunrise.